Okay, the Shem Hashem, the Alieshur, believe it or not, we're up to chapter Baruch Shechayanu, we're up to chapter 12, Hechrech leKliyum mitzvot. This is a very important chapter because it says mitzvahs are not extra credit or just the cherry on top. Without, like we actually were just discussing this. How do we know the oral Torah is true? How do we know that we have to keep the Torah? What is the logical impediment? He says, when we say Torah is Torat Chaim, the Torah is so glorious and complete that there's no part of life from your bedroom, literally, to your bathroom that the Torah doesn't have what to say. How to live in the most glorious and noble.
In every aspect of life.
Yeah, so he says, he says like a biological animal, like a cow. Doesn't need any shulchan aruch, like any. It's its nature, it's able to survive. Naturally, in its DNA, it breathes, it drinks, it eats, it sleeps, with its basic instincts. And it doesn't think about the theological things like you were thinking about. What's more important? To love God, to fear God, like why are we here? To be or not to be? Monkeys and cows are not obsessed with that.
Of course.
To know what will be after we die. He says, so us human beings also, we get tired, we sleep, we're hungry, we need to eat, we're thirsty, we need to drink. And our awakeness after sleep shows that it was worthwhile to sleep, right? The proof is in the pudding, that after you do something that's necessary, like after you eat, now that you're calm and satiated, it proves that eating is necessary. Same thing with sleep. Now that you rested and you're able to function, you see that it's a necessary. So it says it's self-evident truths because it's in our nature and it's our basic instincts, and once we do it, we're able to function. The same thing is in Torah, though. We have to get to a level of emunah that, you understand? That we understand, like tefillin, Shabbat, all these things is as necessity as eating and sleeping and drinking. He says parents that are good parents. The greatest investment in the world is, you know what, Jason? To create great parents to raise Tu B'Shvat, and the apple doesn't fall
far
from the tree. It says a child that has been raised on the lap of luxury of Torah, right? Parents that know that Torah is like their oxygen, and mitzvah, without Shabbat, there is no meaning to life. He sees it and he absorbs. Actions always speak greater than words. So he realizes that this is the meaning to life. It's so sad, people that don't have Shabbat. They spend their Saturdays watching college basketball and just sleeping and doing worse things. You know?
Clubbing.
And where does their neshama get any satisfaction? Their neshama is dead inside of them. You know? That's why they're doing more and more and more outrageous stuff.
No, نشاماشون desensitize کردن.
نه. It's like trying to put diesel fuel in something that needs octane. The neshama needs Torah and Shabbat and closest to God to get, you know? He says a kid sees how praying every day 3 times makes his parents holy and angelic. And it reminds us that God is in charge and we can never lose our hope. Right? Because Gamza Latova, it's all about Hashem. and we maintain our dignity and know that we're in the image of God. See, basically what the Torah is doing is injecting, and every mitzvah is injecting holiness into every aspect of life. Like your body, that's why it's like we were talking about Gehinom, hell. Like one of the worst sins is never to put tefillin on or brit milah, because then your body is not holy. And they've missed the boat because they don't realize it's a golden opportunity to inject your animalistic body. Listen, no animal goes and kills 6 million other animals. If we don't keep, we could be more sinister and evil and disgusting and ruthless than the worst cobra, you know? We need Shabbat and Shema Yisrael to inject holiness and morality and remind us that there's a God that's watching us. And yes, we have to love Him, but if you don't fear Him, you're going to have to pay the piper.
Of course.
Uberkat haneinin, every time we eat, it brings holiness into our eating, because eating is like an animalistic thing. So when you say a blessing before and after, we're reminded that it's a blessing from God. Actually, I have to add this to you. When I was learning in Israel, I heard an amazing, beautiful thing. Somebody went up to Rav Volbe. He was like a newly-wed couple, and they were very paranoid that they should teach their kids like the best, be the best parents in the world. So somebody asked Rav Volbe, how could I teach my kid fear of God? Because it's an abstract thing. So Rav Volbe said, through osmosis, make your blessings very deliberately. Baruch Ata Hashem, like you're really talking to Hashem and thanking Him for the fruits, and he says that by osmosis they're going to witness. That's going to inject to them the fear of God. You understand? Because that's why it's so important to be that external example, you know? And it says, Hu mechakeh, he says somebody, a parent, that Shabbat is 1/60th of Gan Eden, of the Garden of Eden. So it says a Jew that's keeping Shabbat the right way, he's just from the beginning of the week. Sunday you're already anticipating, wow, when is it going to be Shabbat? When is it going to be Passover? When is it going to be Sukkah Moed? You look forward to it. Mitzvot hayom patochot lo sha'arei bina, because also each mitzvah opens up a gate of wisdom and makes you connected to your Father in heaven. Because Aramaic mitzvah is like a connection.
Yeah.
So it says, so it says, it gives us so much meaning, and to realize that we're so honored. It's not a burden, God forbid. It's an honor to be able to do these mitzvahs. And shame on those Jews that don't look at it as an honor and privilege. Another aspect of Judaism is to host guests, like for Shabbat, or people that need a place to sleep, right? Because Avram was founder to walk old men home and do kindness, be very sensitive, make men sexually aroused. And how do you know a house is a real house of Torah? That the parents walk around modestly in the house. It's an atmosphere of holiness. He says once you keep it, you realize without it there's no meaning to life. That's why King David says in Tehillim, Ta'amur, taste the mitzvah, then you're going to get addicted to it. You're going to see that when you didn't have that mitzvah in your life, you were in the dark. You understand? Like I didn't used to keep Shabbat. I used to be somebody that used to watch college basketball. Baruch Hashem, I had a tremendous... Through divine providence, I have to thank God 1 trillion times a day that I was lucky that I became Shomer Shabbat on my bar mitzvah. That was the day that I decided, but so much of what we do, like even watching TV and stuff, the stuff is so low life. It's like a
Shut it
waste
down.
of time, stupid, libby-tart stuff. They have no morality, it's a garbage. You're feeding garbage to your head. You learn Torah, you get enlightened. And he says even the mitzvahs that we don't know the reason for, like Shemitah and Gushti Masti, not having milk and meat together, Shatnez. He says even these that it's hard to understand the reason, when you keep it, you realize that you're more refined. Which means, whether you like it or not, whether you understand or not, everything a Jew does has to be kosher. What he eats, what he says. What he wears, how he sleeps with his wife. How he deals with his kids. How he does business. Everything we need to do, literally everything, from head to toe, 24/7, has to be kosher. He says a child that witnesses this nobility of spirit, this glorious angelic atmosphere of holiness, he realizes that without keeping the mitzvah, there's no real meaning to life. It's all superfluous. It's all a waste. The Torah becomes the meaning and happiness of his life. And that's why a lot of these people that go off the Derech, that's the sad part of it. That the atmosphere was based on fear and force, and they didn't taste the beauty. It says, "Chol zot gam hu simanei chayim ki yesh lanu tam atzmi, cheshech atzmi, sheifa atzmit b'chayim." It gives purpose to life. Not only a general purpose, but sometimes, like I was explaining to you, like Chabad, like they say we were responsible for every Jew to bring him back to Torah. Like Rab Nachman Breslev says, like it's so important to have happiness, do everything with happiness, and always a Jew should be a symbol of happiness. The epitome of a person that's jolly. So it's saying the Torah, both on a macro and a micro, personally, like there's certain mitzvahs that certain people connect to much more, and that gives you a certain deliciousness to that specific mitzvah, and that's a good thing. That some people, if they don't have 100 guests at their every Shabbat table, it's like they didn't have Shabbat, because that's like they have that, their neshama is like a spark of an hour a day. Each time they pray, because they just meditate to such high, literally they're not in the zone. They leave this world when they pray. They're in a different, their soul leaves their body. So everybody connects to Hashem in their own micro way, and that's good. Just because this guy has 100 guests doesn't mean, but it gives a special reason for your personal existence when you connect to a certain mitzvah, because that's that's the uniqueness of your soul. You get what I'm saying? And that's a good thing. אף אחד מאיתנו אינו חי את חייו הגופניים בערך מצוות אנשים מלומדה, כאילו החיים הם מעשה אבותיו בידיו. He said, just like you don't breathe because your grandfather breathed, you shouldn't keep the Torah because your grandfather breathed. You should find your own special connection to the mitzvah. You understand? And that's sad, because sometimes people come to me and they say, oh, there was this Hasidic guy that did the most sinister and bad things and, outrageous things. You have to understand, some people, they're just in a ghetto and they just go with the flow. It's not because they personally found their own God,
Yeah.
It's kind of fake.
Yeah.
There's no soul to their
mitzvot.
To their mitzvot. And it's sad. So then, once there's no soul, then they're just basically faking it. That's why when they have the opportunity and they think nobody's looking, they just go do whatever they want. Because they really... He says somebody that keeps the Torah and mitzvot, he says if you're just keeping the Torah because your grandparents kept it and you have no special delicious, the mitzvahs are not... It's just there's no heart and soul in it, then your Torah is not a real Torah. It's a dead Torah. And a dead Torah dies out. That's why we need to learn Musar every day, Gemara every day. Like our great Sephardic Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Ben Sion Abashal had a beautiful custom. Every year he would learn a new commentary in the Torah to get new ideas. Like the Torah it shouldn't be stale. Something that's stale dies out. Something that's, oh wow, there's idea, that's idea. You know? It says, Hen kesheyeh b'bayit horav safak Torah, and that's really one of the main the parents, one of the main duties they have is to make it like that. You follow me? To create an atmosphere where there's excitement for the mitzvah, and there's a heart and soul in the mitzvah, and that you have each one of the children has a personal love for a mitzvah. Rakvon hashilton al chaya b'Torah. This makes you a ruler over the Torah. And it makes the Torah so sweet. You know, that's why we start, that's why we start the Rosh Hashanah with all sweet things. Because we want to say that the Torah should always be sweet. And that's one of the 3 blessings we say every day. But if God forbid the Torah is stale, you're in a danger zone. Because why would you want to give something more stale to your, it just doesn't last, God forbid.